Everyone will please take their seats. We will get started. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October regular meeting of the City of La Crosse Common Council. At this time, the council will recite the Pledge of Allegiance and listen to an invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This time, the council will observe a moment of silence for those that wish to participate. Please stand as you are able. You may be seated. Again, good evening, and this meeting is now in order. The first items to be addressed will be the minutes of the September regular meeting, the report of the Department of Building and Inspections for the month of September, and the report of the Director of Finance for the month of September. Motion on the floor is to approve if there is no discussion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, same sign. The motion is carried. Next, we have items for notice and discussion. The chair will recognize the City Finance Director.
Thank you, Mayor. For those of you that are traveling to the annual league meeting next week, just a reminder that I do need detailed itemized receipts from each and every one of you in order to be reimbursed. I can't just accept a generic credit card statement or whatever. Just it has to be itemized and detailed. So just for that reminder so that you can get reimbursed. Thank you.
At this time, the chair will recognize the City Public Works Director.
Thank you, Mayor. Tomorrow, beginning at 11:30 down at the Municipal Services Center, the Street Department, we will be hosting our third annual Snowplow Rodeo Skills Competition. Again, begins at 11:30 till about 2:30, 3 o'clock. Our plow drivers will be attempting to negotiate a preset course with snowplows, looking for pieces of equipment that have some errors or whatever. So I invite all of you to come down at about 11:30 tomorrow to Municipal Service Center. Thank you.
And we have a request for a notice from our County Planning Department, Mr. Charlie Handy, but I do not see him present here. If there are no other items for notice or discussion, the chair will recognize a council member from the 15th District.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to take a quick couple seconds to thank Art Fay and the staff of the La Crosse Center for having the restrooms open during the Maple Leaf Parade. I know we all received an email on that, and actually the parade was in progress when I had a constituent come up to me and say that was really nice that was open. So those are one of those small things that we do, but I'm sure is very much appreciated by the public.
Chair will recognize a council member from the 5th District.
Thank you. I'd really like to thank our protective services for their work to keep our community safe during Oktoberfest. They really deserve recognition for their efforts, and I know I and my constituency are really appreciative of the work that's been done these past few weeks. So thanks, everybody.
Chair will recognize a council member from the 13th District.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the La Crosse Police Department and all the agencies that were involved in the apprehension of Mr. Lepsch in the arrest for the murders on Main Street. A lot of times we hear a lot of things in the paper and people talk about crime and the way that sometimes they don't think they're doing a good job, but at this point in time, we need to give them congratulations on a job well done.
Are there any other items for notice or discussion? If there are no other items for notice or discussion, we have a fire department badge presentation. This time, Mr. Assistant Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council and the public. Tonight, I'm here to present Keegan Murphy and Blake Hunt as our two newest firefighters of La Crosse Fire Department. They have completed their 1 year of service, passed all trainings, tests, and are here to get a badge ceremony being presented by Keegan's wife, Alyssa, and Blake's captain, Captain Joe Fermonic. Keegan was hired last August. Keegan is currently assigned to B shift at Station 2, and he is on our water corps team. Keegan is one of the paramedics we have on the fire department at this time, and he got his college education at Fox Valley Tech, and Keegan is also a veteran. He served in the U.S. Marine Corps from 1995 to 2005, and then he joined the Firefighter Mountain View Firefighter Protection District out in Colorado before he came to the La Crosse Fire Department last August, excuse me. His wife is Alyssa here to pin his badge on, and he has his son Kellen, who's 2.5, and his daughter Tatum, who has just turned 1 year old. Keegan likes to do a lot of outdoor activities like us firefighters do, hunting and fishing, but I'm not sure if he's really going to have the time raising this young family that he has right now. And his wife Alyssa will be pinning on the badge. Blake got hired last August as well. Blake is currently assigned to A Shift Station 4, and his crew is down here tonight with him. Blake is an EMTB with us, and he is a graduate of Cashton High School back in 2005. Blake attended WTC as a fire protection technician and graduated an associate degree in 2011. He interned with the fire department as a firefighter student at WTC in 2010 with us, so we've known Blake for a while. Blake's also been on the Cashton Fire Department where he grew up and also served on the Cashton First Responders. He likes boating and water skiing in the summer, and he currently serves for the last 7 years as the Cashton High School track and field coach. His captain, Joe Fermonic, will be pinning on his badge. Both of these firefighters have excelled in their first year with us. Both have had previous work experience with fire and EMS, so that accelerated their learning curve with us. Both have put in for posted openings on core teams and assignments in their first year as I receive these requests. We're proud to have Keegan and Blake on La Crosse Fire Department and know they will be assets to the department, the city, and all the citizens and visitors of La Crosse. Alyssa and Captain Fermonic, if you would step forward and pin the badges on Keegan and Blake, please. Thank you very much.
Moving on to common council matters. The first item that the council will take up is the veto by the mayor. Ms. City Clerk, would you please read the veto message?
An ordinance to amend, create, and repeal various provisions of Section 20.25 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of La Crosse relating to off-premise and on-premise sign and billboard regulations. Dear members of the Common Council, I hereby veto the above referenced ordinance. I believe this ordinance reaches beyond the purview of governmental responsibility. I concur that this ordinance will, if enacted, result in aesthetic improvements to corridors within our city. I do not believe the potential aesthetic improvement gained from this ordinance justifies the deprivation of property owner rights to improve property with signage in a fashion that is denied by this ordinance. I believe this ordinance regulates beyond the intended regulatory role of our government. Sincerely, Mayor Matthias Horder.
What is the pleasure of the council in regard to this item? Chair will recognize the council member from the 8th District.
Thank you. I move to override the mayor's veto.
Motion on the floor is to override the veto. Is there discussion? If there is none, please cast your votes. The motion is carried. The veto is overridden. Chair will recognize a council member from the 17th District.
Thank you, Your Honor. Second item of business for the council this evening is a reconsideration item requested by Council Member Paul Menninger.
I'll need a motion to reconsider. A motion on the floor is to reconsider. If there is no discussion, Chair will recognize a council member from the 14th District.
I figured I'd better explain why I brought this back for reconsideration. You'll have to forgive me. I want to get all my points out, so I may do some reading as I speak here. I also want to point out that I did bring both back for reconsideration, both the Committee of the Whole and the HPU issue, because I know for some people those two issues are inseparable. But first of all, I want to say that this is something that I've been thinking about for a long time, and it's a decision I came to on my own. I also have to say that I do disagree with any notion that any of this was done with anything less than good intentions. I do feel that we should re-examine this decision, however. I did say last month, and I will say again, I believe that keeping the public hearings is important. I believe this is where we have our most productive discussions during our meetings every month. While La Crosse may be unique in allowing public hearings to the extent that we do, I believe it is too valuable to do away with. I can honestly say I would sign any petition for any one person, and I believe most people here would. I don't believe getting 5 signatures would be a problem. Therefore, it raises the question, why have that requirement? What about future councils? And why don't we just do it by request only? I understand this amendment was added to keep the public hearing option alive, and that is a good thing, but I feel that this will also create an unnecessary burden for those wishing to speak before the entire council. I also think that we should, if nothing else, have another discussion, for this was initially an HPU issue, and this is an escalation of an HPU issue. I don't, because this was an issue pertaining to HPU that the Committee of the Whole issue was added to, I do not believe that public discussion on ending the Committee of the Whole was given a proper chance, and we've all had more time to think about this. I'm not asking for a complete 180 on this, but I am asking for reconsideration to have another discussion. We could have several options at that point. There is one option, however, I do feel would be a good idea to reduce the redundancy and increase efficiency while keeping the public hearings as well, without the 5 signature requirement. What we could do while keeping the HPU changes and Committee of the Whole changes intact, we could have the public hearing at the beginning of our regular council meeting every month. Started at 7 o'clock, the committee chairs could convene and go over through each public hearing without us debating or voting. We would then be able to listen to public hearings on every issue and ask questions of those here who wish to speak. The public then would not also have to sit through potential hours of us debating amongst ourselves once their public hearing is done before being able to speak. Following completion of those public hearings, we could then continue our regular city council meeting as scheduled, and then we would debate amongst ourselves, have a final vote. I believe under this structure, we could keep the public hearings intact without the signature requirement while reducing redundancy of the Tuesday night meeting as well. This is just one option, however. We could discuss other options, but to discuss any of these, we would need to vote to reconsider. So I ask you to do that. Thank you.
Our motion on the floor is to reconsider. Is there further discussion? If there is none, please cast your votes on reconsideration.
Eight, 10, and 13.
The motion is carried. Is there discussion on this item? If there is none, what is the pleasure of the council in regard to this item? The chair recognizes a council member from the 3rd District.
You know, I don't know that we properly noticed the community that this was going on. The elimination of the Council of the Whole was slipped in at JNA with really no notice to the public. They had to be watching very closely that this was going to be happening because it was not part of any previous agendas. That being said, I think we need to send it back to J&A. We need to hear from the public. I would ask for a 30-day referral.
Motion on the floor is to refer for 30 days. Is there discussion on referral? Chair recognizes a council member from the 10th district.
You know, there has been, the first meeting, you had two landlords who spoke against it, who are known to all of us, okay? And then 30 days later, with great hullabaloo and tape over the mouths and placards, you get 4 speakers who really all they offered was intimidation. That's all they offered. 2 of them went so far as to tell you they like our soapbox. And I would recommend to those 4, the way to do that, I've been opposed in my last 4 elections. You want the soapbox, you get 20 signatures, and you go out and you knock on the doors and you see how you fare, okay? One of the speakers on Tuesday night did that and only got 18 votes in the primary, thus achieving the only record of only person ever getting less than they had submitted on their petition. All right, the public, there are 50,000 people in this community, and you've heard from 7, and they didn't do anything to advance this debate. Now, Mr. Becker came up with the 5 idea, and that was to allow flexibility. Now, last month, we accommodated your desire to have a sunset provision, so this expires in June. You pulled a Sweeney on us and you voted against it after we adopted your amendment. All right, but I think we did it in good faith. I don't think referring it's going to gain you anything. In fact, it's going to muddle the waters, because I think, Mr. Matty, am I right? It is now a duly constituted rule of the City Council and would take 2/3 to repeal it?
Mr. Attorney, would you like to comment on that?
It takes a 2/3 supermajority to enact a new rule. What was done right now is a reconsideration, which simply requires a majority vote. So right now it is
Reconsideration would be 50%, but to change the rule would require a 2/3 vote, would it not?
Your rules require a 2/3 supermajority vote to enact or change a rule.
Correct. So we have an existing rule which says no public hearings as of January 1st for a trial period through June something or other, and it would take 2/3 to change that.
Correct.
Right. So, and you can't knock what you haven't tried, and I think we need to try it. I think this is, I've been around here a long time. This is the biggest single advance in governance here that I have yet to witness. Now, the bar is pretty low for that, because we really haven't done anything in my time here to improve governance. So this is not only a significant thing, but it's probably the first. And so I don't know that anything's to be gained in referral, nothing. And I think, frankly, we should try it. And if it doesn't work, then we can repeal it.
Chair recognizes a council member from the 8th district.
Thank you very much. I was here in 1968 as a reporter, not in this building, it was in the old City Hall, and they did not have public hearings at that time. That was something that came in the late 1960s and early 1970s as a response to the activism that followed the Vietnam War. And the council, but before that, the public would have about 1 chance a year, I think it was, on the budget, talk about the budget, and then it was a unified school district, or it was unified school district, and so they had to have a hearing on the school budget as well, and these things would go until 3 in the morning, and they were pretty ugly. We have great opportunity for the public to address its government here, more than enough, and we have done a great deal more than the Wisconsin legislature, the U.S. Congress, or you go to one of the neighboring townships where they don't have committees, they have 1 meeting a month, and that's it. You have to show up for that 1 meeting, that's your only shot at it as a constituent. And that's all they get here. We get, if you have a zoning matter, you gotta show up for the Plan Commission, J&A, the Committee of the Whole, and the Council. And you saw as an example of the confusion of the public, this guy who wanted his taxi license hearing And the shock on his face when Mr. Becker told him he had to come back tonight. He thought that he had done enough for this month and that he was going to just come back next month. He didn't realize he had to show up again tonight to make sure that his matter got through. And we've seen that so many times with people who wish for a rezoning, or they want something that they're coming back time and time again. And it's time, as Councilmember Farmer points out, to do some improvements here in how we do business. It will also require, it's not just a simple matter of changing, not having a committee of the whole, but we're going to have to place more trust and reliance on our committees, or there more participation in our committees. Right now, who among us knows intimately all the details of all 70 or so pieces of legislation we have on our desk? I bet we don't. I bet we have to, for the finance stuff, we turn to the members of the finance committee for guidance if we're concerned about them. If, you know, it already we're heading that way, it's time to do it. And it gives respect to our committees, it gives respect, more importantly, yet to the public that relies on us and is confused by the way we do business. I hope you do not ask for a referral.
Chair, recognize the council member from the 3rd District.
Thank you, Your Honor. In putting in the sunset clause, I did that because I think this is not the way we should be doing business. And the sunset clause would make it easier to repeal it and go back to the way that we were. Taking away the public's voice is not a good thing. Not everybody in this room goes to both committee meetings, the JNA and the FMP. We don't have a chance to hear what the public wants to say. It's, in the long run, if you're going to do your jobs correctly, you need to get to both meetings so that you can hear the public speak and make a decision, rather than coming into the council, getting 5 signatures, and hearing for the first time on what the public has to say, and then make a decision. Should the committees be doing their work? Yes, they should. But should we as a group also be able to hear what the public has to say? I think that we do, and then take the 2 days to make our decision. I think we need to send this back. I hope that we would vote for referral. Thank you.
Chair, recognize the council member from the 17th District.
Thank you, Your Honor. I totally agree with Councilmember Farmer and my friend from the 8th. I would be totally opposed to going back to status quo. However, that being said, I was really intrigued with the notion that Councilmember Menninger brought forward, and I don't know how that gets the light of day. I mean, I'm hearing that we have a so-called law in the books that's going to require a 2/3 vote to modify. So I don't know how we get from reconsideration to essentially having a discussion about options other than, because if this is something that's viewed as a way of sort of keeping what we have, I'm not there. I really think, I agree with Mr. Farmer, this is an important move in a direction that's way overdue. But I just think there may be another way of getting there, and I'm intrigued with what Mr. Menninger's had to say. So can anyone help me? Can the attorney or someone, how do we get to examine that? If we're just going to refer this to J&A, does that get us there, or how do we
If
get
anyone has any bright ideas at J&A on what to do with it, I suppose it will, if you give them direction at J&A. If you give them direction what to do at J&A, you could do it that way as well. Mr. City Attorney, do you have anything additional to add?
I think the other suggestion that was being mentioned aloud was introducing separate legislation.
Do you wish to retain the floor?
Essentially, then, Mr. Menninger could draft legislation describing what it is he's proposing, and that would go through
the way everything else goes through, rather than referring this back to JNA.
That is an option.
Thank you.
Chair will recognize the council member from the 1st District.
Thank you, Your Honor. All the more important reason to refer this back to JNA so we can have that discussion. The public never had a chance to be heard. This was added, the 5 council members was added at the committee of the whole. There was no notification, there was nothing on the website, there was nothing other than in the Tribune at the last minute and on your other news stations. We need to get back to suggestions on how we can make it more efficient at our committee meetings and for the committee of the whole. The people need to be heard. They weren't heard at the committee of the whole. And if you bring it back to JNA as a referral, I'll guarantee you, you will have the public. I heard from a lot of people, even at the sign committee on Wednesday, or on Tuesday, I'm sorry, afternoon. They didn't have a chance to be heard on this, and I think by bringing it back, I feel very strongly it needs to be referred, and I think you'll have the input then. Just come up with these ideas, but get it referred, and then we can come up with new legislation if need be. Thank you.
Chair will recognize the council member from the 7th District.
Thank you. I feel I bring a unique perspective to this council in being the newest member of it, having been on the other side of the divide here, having to go before the planning board and JNA and then the council of the whole, and finally the real vote at the common council meeting. From a citizen standpoint, it's good to be heard and necessary, but the council of the whole really had the appearance of being a dress rehearsal for tonight's meeting. You got to see what way people voted, and you could lobby them to change their mind. I think it's very important for the public to be heard. I'm not certain the retention of the council of the whole, the way it's existed, is valid. Mr. Mettinger proposed having a public hearing prior to the common council meeting for a last chance for the public to be heard before we place our real votes on things. I think that is a sound suggestion, and I'm more than willing to revisit that. Thank you.
Chair will recognize the council member from the 4th District.
Thank you. I'd like to try to bring this discussion back around to Mr. Farmer's point that this was properly noticed and on our agenda in recent months to eliminate the public hearing, not to eliminate committee of the whole, but to eliminate the public hearing from the committee of the whole. The public did have an opportunity to share their views on that with us. So repeating that process, I don't know how useful that would be. I do know that when I hear council members use terms like taking away the public's voice and eliminating public hearing, I'm very disappointed to hear that kind of inflammatory language come from the floor. I expect it from some members of the public, but not of the council. This has never been about taking away the public's voice. We probably have one of the most inefficient, cumbersome political processes of any municipality in the Western world. People have been trying to change it for years without success. This is a step we can take in the right direction. People will still be able to speak before the council. If council members will make the commitment to come to both standing committees, they will hear those members of the public. And how do you know that the public won't actually be more apt to participate when we make it a little bit simpler and easy for them to come to us and speak? I hope you'll support this and give it a try for 6 months. If it doesn't work out, we'll go back to doing things the way we are now.
The chair will recognize the council member from the 14th District.
Thank you. I'm not necessarily opposed to referring this. I just a question for the city attorney. What about making amendments? Is that something that can be done tonight, and is that something that needs a supermajority?
Mr. City Attorney.
Your question is whether you can make an amendment tonight? Yeah, after reconsideration, you can, the main motion is before you, and you are able to make amendments on that motion. The main motion to adopt the legislation, which is to change the rules, the ultimate main motion requires a supermajority vote.
Chair, recognize a council member from the 9th District.
Thank you, Your Honor. I guess I like the idea that Councilmember Menger is proposing. I'm kind of perplexed, like Mr. Swans is, that we can't get this done tonight to do the Menninger plan. But if that's the way we get the Menninger plan done, is by bringing